Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my Daily Dose with Tim. Today is season 3, episode 18. Oh my goodness, it's just hard to believe how quickly these episodes are flying by. I mean, one episode every day, and today's day 18 already. And so, with that, if you've actually had a chance to look at the title of the episode, I'm going to be doing a quick Q&A session with all of you, because all of you have been watching this either live or after the fact. The point is, though, like I keep saying, I really truly appreciate your engagement and your questions, because that really tells me that you are learning. And that's really all I want to do at this point, is the fact that I just want to pass down and share as much as I have learned over the years that has allowed me to create a completely different financial reality and life, really. Again, I mean, I love money. I will not shy away from saying that, simply because of the fact that I really truly see money as one of the greatest tools available to all mankind at this point. It's a tool, and it's just that I think, like many people still, I grew up being taught that you don't be greedy for money. Just do your honest work and then collect your paychecks and whatever it is that you make. And if you're lucky enough, work hard, get promotions, get better paychecks, and maybe you can afford better things and more things in life. However, that's pretty much it. And while, again, I don't disagree with that kind of thought process, for me personally, it just always felt very, very limiting. And I realized that it's simply because of the fact that I've always thought growth in so many different aspects of my life, and just having the options to really, do what I want to do. And through one of the greatest tools and resources that are available to all of us, I think it's created a lot of freedom in my mind, freedom for me emotionally, mentally, and physically, because I know a lot of people already kind of somewhat know my story. I've had 3 minor heart attacks in my life, 1 heart surgery, a major depression, and every day I do live with 6 autoimmune disorders. So what that means is, quick translation, pain management on a daily basis. However, when most people meet me for the first time, if they don't know my story, they will see me as, somebody healthy, somebody fit, which I appreciate, because that is the image and that is the feeling that I am. I have worked so hard and continuing to work so hard to create, not for others, but for myself first and foremost, because of the fact that I've been able to take the time and have the resources to really seek out support and help over the years, so that I don't feel like I got to manage my pain every single day, even though it has become a part of my reality. And so, with that said, though, I just really want to put this out there one more time, is the fact that my daily dose with Tim truly is about the mindset about money, how money works, and how we can all learn how to get more of it, manage it, and use it the most effective and efficient way possible, so that we can not only create a better life for ourselves, we are able to create that positive influence and that ripple effect into our own families, our own communities, and as a result, hopefully the world. Because through a lot of observations and studying, I've really come to realize that a lot of the really wealthy people, they are inherently very happy with where they are in life. And from the outside world, it seems like it's because they've got lots of money. However, having lots of money is just a result of who they've had to become to create and to attain that. So I guess I'm getting a little bit more philosophical right now, and I will just share this with you. I've been back on the Brendan Burchard train for a while, and what that means is I really, really enjoyed his podcasts. And so if you don't know who that is, Google him. He's one of the leading experts, and one of the highest performing coaches, mentors, and trainers in the world right now when it comes to personal development. So I really love his materials, and he's done a lot of studying, and he's really invested a lot of time, money, and energy to really find out what makes us tick and what drives us, what motivates us, what keeps us inspired, and what keeps us going and focused. So I'm not going to be sharing that with you because that's not what this channel is really about, or what these episodes are really about. However, I just do believe that all of these things, they are interconnected and they are related to one another. So with that said, I'm going to actually share something with you, is the fact that I do summarize my episodes once every so often for my team, and for those of you who will eventually be watching these episodes on YouTube as well, so that you have a better understanding in terms of what each episode actually covers. And so with that said, I've got my little notes here from the questions that people have submitted. So that's the funny thing. I want to go back to every single question, as many as possible, and that's also why I've decided to pause continuing distressed properties today. The previous 2 episodes were based on distressed properties, and I did say we're going to continue that. However, today I just really want to take a quick pause, simply because of the fact that the questions have been piling up, and so I want to make sure that everybody is clear so that you can continue to keep learning and things will make sense and the dots will connect for you. And so first thing first, what is asset management? And so, I just want to be very clear one more time, is the fact that we are leveraging real estate as an asset class to generate multiple sources of income and short-term and long-term capital gains and long-term and generational wealth. And so with that said, asset, as we mentioned, is really understanding what an asset versus liability is. And in this case, a positively cash flowing property is an asset. Okay, if you just buy a property and it's not making you income on a monthly basis, it is not an asset. And it's what we call the buy, rent, and pray, which again we will get into in a little bit, because I did create a few episodes just to really hopefully drive that point home. And so again, we don't call it portfolio management most of the times. Portfolio management really comes from when you have a decent sized portfolio. However, we like to call it asset management, because every single property that you will acquire and invest in needs to be a piece of asset. And so that once again means that it needs to be a viable business, and every single viable business needs to create positive cash flow at the end of the day, because it can only go so far without it, and for so long without it, without going bankrupt. And that's not what we want at all. And so this is why so many people, they're like, why is it not property management? Why is it not tenant management? It is a much, much greater concept. And because once you start to break it down and understand how you do the calculations, as I've shown in previous episodes, then you understand why I want to really stick to the words asset management, even on a single property level, because it is all about the mindset. No different than later on when we're discovering the lease option strategy one more time. I will always say, legally speaking and technically speaking, you want to stick to using the term lease options. And for marketing purposes, you are able to use words like rent to own, rent to buy, lease to own, because that makes it a lot more colloquial, makes it a lot easier for the majority of the population to understand. And so those are 2 very different things, okay? So being technically and legally correct, and in this case, financially, I wanna make sure that everybody understands that every piece of property that we acquire needs to be an asset. And as a result, we are managing the asset one at a time, and we call it asset management. And once you've accumulated enough assets, then it becomes portfolio management. And that's also why within the Trust Your Talent Academy curriculum, it is called portfolio management rather than just property management. And we'll get into that as we move along with the distressed properties episodes moving forward, is the fact that when you decide to hang on to a property after picking up a distressed property and putting it through the BRRRR process, naturally speaking, by definition, it is an income property, and an income property is a piece of asset. However, depending on the scale, the size of that piece of property, then we get into a bit more details. Okay, and so on that note, that was pretty much the biggest question from episode 7. And episode 8, 9, and 10, they're very much interconnected. And so while this wasn't so much a question, I still want to address this. It was more of a comment about how I named these episodes, and I think I actually made it very clear in episode 8 as I was going to start a 3-episode series. This is largely referring to the mindset, and that's why, if you remember, I actually drew out the boxes that basically, when you put them all together, are the 4 main components and elements in every single financial statement, both on a personal level, on a government level, on a business level, okay? And so with that said, it's really just taking you through the mindset of the poor mindset when it comes to money, the middle class mindset when it comes to money, and the rich and wealthy mindset when it comes to money. And money is not real, especially if you're a North American these days. Our money is not backed by the government's choice, deliberately, any sort of hard asset. It used to be backed by gold, and it hasn't been for over 50 years now at this point, okay? And so what that means is, this is why I keep saying we love real estate as an asset class, simply because of the fact that it is a piece of hard asset. And so if the government, the lawmakers, the regulators do not choose for us, the general population living in North America, to have our currency protected and backed by a hard asset, then it is now, from a financial education perspective, for us to pick a hard asset for ourselves. And this is why real estate has been proven year after year, decades after decades, centuries after centuries, to be one of the most effective hard assets for people to generate long-term wealth with, okay? And so I really want to make sure that that is very, very clear to every one of you, because this is why I always say real estate investing should really be broken down into 2 different components. And so on that note, I know episode 11 and episode 12 and 13, they're all interconnected. Now, the biggest question is, well, I mean, right now, these days, I don't even know if we're going to see the same upswing, even in a major market, despite the fact that the demands may continue to be high. And that is literally the point that I was making. This particular condo, if you remember my numbers, I bought it for $250,000 in 2004. And at its peak, somebody was selling it at $925,000, and more than doubled in less than 20 years. Okay. In fact, it almost multiplied by value by 4 times, almost. And so again, if you actually dig a little deeper and look at the average growth in value for North American real estate, you're going to see that even in most major metropolitan cities across North America. So these are your New York Cities, your Toronto, your Seattle, your LAs, your San Francisco, Chicago, Miami, and Vancouver, for our Canadian investors and Canadians like me. Typically speaking, every 10 to 15 years, the value would double in these major cities. And if you factor in the country average, every 20 years, the property value would likely double. So that's the thing. Between the early 2000s all the way to 2020, especially with COVID, that created a phenomenon for housing demand that was, in my opinion, quite artificial. However, it is what it is at this point. That's also why we're facing rising inflations as well as rising interest rates, so that the governments and the lawmakers can somewhat regulate it for the people that are stuck in the middle class. And I don't mean that in any bad ways. I just want to, again, go back and watch the other episodes. I just, we got at some point, at some point, we all gotta see it for what it is and understand what is triggering all these economic fluctuations and phenomenon. Okay. And so episode 11, 12, and 13, if you're even worried about the value not going up as quickly as the last 20 years, then please go back and review episode 12 and 13 at the very least to understand the core concepts. And so I realized, I think I forgot to mention one tool that I was using to analyze the numbers in episode 12 and 13. And number one, it is the inflation calculation, okay, or the consumer index inflation numbers, first of all. Second of all is the devaluation of money or the valuation of money. So let's say $100, how much was it worth? Sorry, $100 back in 2004, how much is it worth, let's say today in the year 2023? And last but not least, I had to use an amortization calculation as well so that I could calculate the total cost of borrowing. Okay, so those are the three main tools that were used. And I know I forgot to mention one, which was the amortization tool. So make sure you understand those now. And the next one will be episodes 14 and 15. These are the top 6 priorities in real estate investing. I know I'm basically just sharing with you the high level points. However, once you actually rewatch the episodes, you can actually break down what every single priority means. And that's the thing. The reason why these 2 episodes were actually inspired was based on one of your questions is, I really just want to find that perfect deal because I want something to cash flow well, and I also want something to work to have a great return on investment. That means my money's working really hard for me, right? Like you said, Tim. And at the same time, though, oh my God, I find that it is so hard to balance and juggle between all these things that I want. And this is why the central idea is if everything is a priority, nothing is. And it's the same thing about investing. And the example that I always give is my personal journey, and that's how I answer my questions. And as a result, that's also why the top 6 priorities in that order is exactly how I would approach it too. And oftentimes, even when I'm teaching, it is always about focusing on 1 and 2, because if we are going through a very simple acquisition process, priorities 1 and 2 would be the easiest things to focus on, and priority 3 would come into play. And then when you're going through the BRRRR process, priority 4 obviously follows along very shortly. However, priority number 5, for example, terms and conditions, go back and watch the episode, you will then understand that largely has to do with what we call creative financing. Because what that means is maybe you're a little tapped out, financially speaking. Maybe you need to really get creative in terms of how you structure your deals at that point. And so what that means is it is not, in that order, it basically caters to investors at different levels of knowledge and experience also, okay? And appreciation, priority number 6, which means it's kind of at the bottom of the list because it is the fool's gold, as I call it. And actually, I learned it from somewhere. And so it is not something that we focus on, okay? And so go through all of that because, as I mentioned, my very first goal was to free myself from a physically draining, soul-sucking corporate career, and that was hurting my personal health, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode. And so my focus was cash flow, so that I would have the financial options to not trap myself into another job. However, again, these days, I don't see jobs and work as something bad as long as it brings you meaning and it charges you and it fulfills you and it brings you joy as a person. And that's what I didn't have. And through financial and time freedom, I was able to create that for myself. And that's why these days I keep saying, creating and building Trust Your Talent to push financial education out into the world is my greatest passion project. And I will continue to do that to the day I die. And I know somebody is always being really smart with me. Tim, sometimes you look tired, sometimes you sound tired, and I've met you in person, and I know you have to travel a lot. Doesn't it still feel like a job? And yes, it does some days. I am going to be completely honest with you. At the same time, as I said, it brings me joy, it gives me meaning, and it fulfills me on such a deep level that nothing else ever really did before, working for something else and working for somebody else. And this is what's also cool with the Trust Your Talent team, the coaches, the mentors, and the trainers, is that we can all relate to those values that we honor so much. And that's why Trust Your Talent's core values are health, sustainability, joy, fulfillment, and impact. Okay. And when it comes to health, it is not just mental, emotional, and physical health, it is also your financial health. We truly believe that financial health can also allow us to take care of a lot of other aspects of wellness and fitness in life. So, with that said, hopefully that helps you with understanding the intention of episodes between 7 and 15 at this point. I know the questions will always come. And as you know, every single episode, I also make a fair attempt to answer and clarify questions that you had from the previous episodes. So today, I really just wanted to do a special a session here, a special episode with everybody so that a lot of these higher level concepts and mindset hopefully are a lot more clear. And at the end of the day, please go back and rewatch the episodes so that you can understand them better. Okay, so with that said, I want to say thank you so very much again. I am still in Toronto, and tomorrow I actually go to Ottawa for our Trust Your Talent Connect event. And on the 3rd, which is this Saturday, we're going to be doing the same thing in Waterloo, Ontario. And on the 7th, also London, Ontario. I will once again post the questions as I promised in the write-up, and as well as the event links. Make sure you register if you're planning to join us, simply because of the fact that we are doing these events at restaurants. And so there usually is a capacity limit, so we need to let them know. So please register if you're planning to come, and I look forward to meeting you in person. With that note, I hope you're enjoying the great weather that you also share as Toronto today, and have a great rest of the day. Live well, everybody.